Okay, Coach Smart is ready for your question. We'll start on the left side back row.
Dan Peck, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Coach, there's uncertainty about future schedules in the SEC, but there seems to be a push to keep the Auburn-Georgia game on the schedule. I'd love to know your thoughts on the rivalry and the importance of continuing to play that game moving forward.
Extremely important, border rivalry, a lot of ties between the two schools, the Vince Dooley-Pat Dye connection, a lot of respect for Auburn and Hugh. There's a lot of great rivalries. We seem to be, I think somebody told me this once, that we're the only school that has 5 contiguous states. So go figure. You end up with a lot of rivalries when you touch 5 states. So priorities will be based on what the SEC office thinks best. I don't have a lot of input on that. I kind of just deal with the hand that we get.
On the aisle, fourth row.
Corey LeBounty, WNSP 105.5, Mobile, Alabama. Coach Smart, your team back-to-back national champions. You talked about complacency and the challenge with complacency. Your team coming into this year, how do you go ahead and address all of those issues internally and block out the external factors?
Well, we address them by the people we bring in our organization. I think you start by developing good people and bringing good people in. I just talked about it on the main floor, but we look for 2 characteristics: people that love football and people that embrace a selfless role. Once you do that, they don't have complacency because they have the right hardwiring. So, people that worry about outcomes like, oh gosh, my ego, why am I not getting the ball? Or like, oh man, we lost the game. Complacency sets in on those people because when they hit a milestone, they don't know how to respond to it. So we want people that are intrinsically motivated. I mean, they come from inside out and they want to be great regardless of that. Now, do we have all players like that? No. We're trying to move our needle to get the majority that way so that we can stomp out that complacency. And we just want to be as dominant and as good as we can be, and that starts with competing against each other.
Front row.
Chris Farblin, KSU 80.1 FM. The Florida-Georgia game is a rivalry that's been in Jacksonville for several decades. It's one of the most storied traditions in the SEC. But the future of the game's location has been in question with potential renovations to TIAA Bank Field. You've been vocal. You've said that you believe the game is better on campus. Could you go into more detail on why you believe the game should be played at Gainesville and Athens?
Well, first off, you misspoke about the game. It's the Georgia-Florida game. Okay, so I want to clear that up. But for us, I really don't care where the game's played. I want what's best for the student athlete, and I want what's best for our program. Unfortunately, if you consider that to be a premier matchup and a national game, there's no recruit that will ever take an official visit or get to visit the campus while the game's in Jacksonville. That's just physically impossible. So both universities, not just Georgia, lose out on an opportunity to showcase their campus in the greatest light there is. And to me, that's really important. Every university I've been at, you had that feature game that everybody in the country wanted to come watch. Now, with that said, in the ever-changing landscape and the speeding up of recruiting, more kids are getting recruited in June in official visits, and they're finishing, like right now, the number of commitments we have. So less effect the season has on coming to games. So that's probably less than some. And with the renovation of the stadium, we're probably going to get to see how it is playing at a different location in the next 2 years.
Left side, fourth row.
Hey, Coach Smart, Jamal Kennedy, WSFA 12 Sports in Montgomery, Alabama. Georgia's the first school to go back-to-back national championships in football since Alabama did it, and you've been a part of both storied programs. Not asking you to compare, but do you see sort of what was built at Alabama now sort of starting to take shape here at Georgia?
Again, I wouldn't compare. I think the two circumstances are very different. 2 different programs led by different people. A lot of respect for Nick and the things I learned from him, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with him as an assistant coach. But what we're doing right now is based on the players and the people in the organization we have, not anything relevant to what we had when I was there.
Left side, third row.
Hey, Coach. Taylor Kaufman with CBS 42 in Birmingham. What do you have to say to people who maybe say that Georgia's schedule is a cakewalk?
and come play it. I mean, I'd love to invite any team in the country who wants to play in the SEC. Come right ahead, you know. And I don't get into comparisons year to year, but I'm a big believer in opening with a great game, a great kickoff game. We've done that repeatedly. We've scheduled that out. I think we got UCLA, Ohio State, FSU, Louisville, all in coming years. Clemson next year. We had Oregon, and we had Clemson before that. So a lot of things I can control. I don't control the narrative that people create outside of our building.
Right side, second row.
Coach Michael Bronner, WNSP in Mobile. You're obviously building a recruiting machine. You talk about rooting out complacency. How do you go about doing that when you're bringing in so many talented players?
Well, you teach, you know, you teach kids. You show them evidence that, like, works. Like we say, hard work works. Like if you work really hard and you buy into the team concept and you contribute some kind of way, your time's coming. You're going to play. We've had a lot of freshmen go out and start and play, and I think there's a misnomer that when you recruit well, that means you have to sit and wait. We started 2 true freshmen last year on defense, the very first game. So when you recruit talented people and you got people that are selfless, that love the game, you've got an opportunity to have good success.
Left side over here, third row.
Hey, Coach, Ben Portnoy from the State Newspaper. I'm just curious, you mentioned a little bit of the rivalry question and the scheduling going forward. South Carolina's not on the schedule in 2024. I guess that game's now been played 30 straight years. It won't be next year. Is that a game that you'd like to see stay on the schedule going forward as the SEC does come to a resolution on the scheduling model beyond 2024?
Yeah, I'd love for it to. I think it's you know, we're on that side of the state. You know, the distance between the two is important to have those rivalries. But I'm also not going to sit here and say the other side of the fence is we had 2 unique teams join our conference, and it's hard for everybody to play everybody in the scheduling model we have. So I respect the difficulty in the schedule making process that our conference has.
Right side on the aisle.
Hey, Kirby. John Sokoloff with WCBI TV in Mississippi. I know you guys obviously are playing Ole Miss this year. I know you and Lane Kiffin are good friends through the tweets, whether hearing about group chats or also you guys being on the same staff for a couple of years. I guess what's your relationship with him like? What do you think of him, and what are you looking forward to about playing on November 11th?
Well, I'm not looking forward to playing him because he's really difficult to prepare for and against. I know firsthand how smart he is. He's one of the best offensive minds in football. He sees things from the field as a quarterback and a coordinator. He communicates those things really well to his players. He prepares his team well. I have a lot of respect for Lane, and you say, what is our relationship? It's a friendship that we work together. We worked hard together. Like we had the same goal, and I thought he did a tremendous job at Alabama. He made my job easier because he scored a lot of points. And I appreciate the friendship that we've been able to maintain, and that he doesn't let recruiting, whether we're recruiting the same person, come between us. It's bigger than that.
Second row.
Tyler Shaw with KBTX and College Station. Last year, you somehow convinced some of the team that people were picking them to go 7-5 and were being overlooked. I guess, how do you convince a defending national championship team of that? And then I guess how much more difficult does it get going for a third one? Yeah,
it's so funny you say that because I've never brought that up to our team. I think our team would laugh at me if I said we were going to go 7-5. So there's a mistake out there somewhere that's ever been brought up by me. Now, I've heard quotes from players that said that. They might have read it somewhere, they might have believed it, but it never came from me because I'm a big self-confidence coach. So the entire offseason last year, I told them how good they could be because all they heard about was how many players they lost. And I pumped that through and through that we had a tremendous team and we're going to be a really good team and they're going to go out and play competitive football. But I don't get into the narratives because once you start using that to motivate your team, you're going to struggle.
Right side, second row.
Good morning, Coach. Brianna Jones with WTVY in Dothan, Alabama. Earlier, Kamari said that the team's only weakness was really maintaining the positive mindset. How do you guys do that and create your own identity when you're constantly being compared to Alabama?
Yeah, I don't know that we're constantly compared. I haven't noticed us being constantly compared to Alabama. I wouldn't feel that way. I feel like we're compared against our own success and the success we've had since being there. I think we're one of the only teams in the country to finish 7 years in a row, maybe, or 6 years in a row in the top 7. So not just about championships, it's being relevant every year. That our positive mindset comes from, we create that ourselves by what we do and say to each other, and Kamari's a big part of that because he is a positive young man.
Left side, second row.
Kirby, Jeff Spiegel, ABC 3340 in Birmingham. There's a perception out there that while this program has done a lot of great things on the field, off the field it's lacking in accountability and discipline. What can you say today to address that perception?
I would say talk to any of the players within our organization, talk to the retention rate that we keep with our players. Our players respect the fact that they're under a microscope and that they always will be as athletes, but we've got one of the highest character, highest GPA, one of the best teams we've had. So I'm very confident about our team and our culture.
Final 2 questions to your right, standing up.
Hey, Coach. Connor Hines here with WMAZ in Macon. You talked a lot about eating off the floor. How does a guy like Javon Bullard sort of embody that, especially given his finish with the back-to-back MVPs at the end of the season?
Yeah, Javon's a guy that had a chip on his shoulder. He was another not highly recruited guy. He loves football, and he embraces a selfless role. And he came in the COVID class. So there's another evidence of a guy like Kamari and a guy like Brock Bowers that bought into the team concept, loves it. He loves to eat off the floor. He likes that saying. He's a hard worker that overcomes a lot. And a lot of people didn't have high accolades on him, but we liked the intrinsic character in him, and it's paid off because he's a tough physical leader in our team.
Final question right up front.
Yeah, Coach. Brooks Austin, Dogs Daily. I'm curious, through all the years, how do you make sure your message stays fresh? Where do you go to for new material, new inspiration, new sayings?
Read books, talk to people, inherit and plagiarize from others that have done it before. We bring in outside sources. We bring in tons of outside speakers, and I'm sitting front and center when they speak to take notes and grow as a coach, because I do think it's important to keep your message fresh. I do think it's important in this day and age to do things with your student athletes in terms of 60-second messages, because they can't last much longer. But we have a guy by the name of Drew Brandon with Amplos he's out of Greenville, South Carolina. He works with our team, and he works with me, and he's a sports psychologist, and he does a tremendous job.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this season.
Thank you.